All right, so for me, when I first got into guns, one of the more complicated things I had to do, well, at least for me it was mounting a rifle op. It was just all gibberish and shit. Over time, I kind of figured out how to learn how to do it. But for someone who's going out there and just wants to, I mean, the most minimalistic way to just mounting a scope for dummies. Yep. How would you go about doing it?
First thing I look at is making sure that I've got all the right tools that I need to mount a loop-pulled scope. With this IMS mount, it's going to be a 28 inch-pound torque limiter, 65 inch-pound torque limiter, T15 bit, and that's pretty much it to mount that.
So basically, you can mount everything on this table is all you need to mount a rifle.
Yep, that in addition to a set of bubble levels. We use the Wheelers because they're quick and easy. Okay. And a way to support your rifle. Other than that, yeah, there's not a lot else you need.
Okay, let's jump into it. Let's see what this looks like.
Yep, so first things first, what we're gonna do is support the front of the rifle. I like to use a bipod, especially one that has the ability to pan right, or to cant right there. And then the rear of the bag, the rear of the rifle, we're gonna support with the bag right there. First thing we're gonna do is go ahead and get our level set out. I'm gonna go ahead and set that one up on top of the receiver. When I'm looking down at it, I don't want to put the bubble in the center. What I want to do is use the left or the right line when looking directly over it because it's a definitive point. Gotcha. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and butt that bubble up next to the left line right now. Good.
So now that's always going to be your reference, is that left line.
Yes, sir. Okay. Absolutely.
I never thought about that. I still do the whole keep it in the middle.
Right, yeah. Right. So if we can eliminate that variable right off the bat, then we're already going to be more level than we would have been. So from there, what we're just going to do is mount this level up here and get it pretty close. This one has a little thumb wheel adjustment here. So we're going to go ahead and just adjust that.
So why would that be any different from here to here?
Yeah, so when we mount this, it's gonna be just at some random angle. All we're trying to do is make sure that says the same thing as this.
Why, if they're on the same platform?
Yeah, so because we need to remove this here in just a second to be able to take our mount, and we're gonna go ahead, get our mount put up here. And I just like to do a rough layout of my scope to make sure it's sitting in the mount where I want before I start buckling everything down.
So how would you normally choose how far forward, how far back? Now, so on the SCAR 20, you know, we're dealing with just a unilateral rail space, right? So I guess it doesn't make that much of an issue. But for someone who say using an AR, the traditional style AR, how do you usually determine where to put it, forward or back? Yep,
so I like to start with a tubular optic, a magnified optic. I kind of like to have my eyepiece right up against where the charging handle would be. Okay. On a SCAR, that's where I'm gonna start as well. Some people may push it forward slightly with the ability to adjust your length of pull and cheek riser height. I'm just gonna use that as my basic.
So it's kind of like a personal preference, quasi-science.
It depends on the weapon system you're shooting, how much magnification you have, the positions you're going to be shooting, time of year, clothing dependent, all that stuff matters. So if you're only going to be shooting in the wintertime with heavy clothing, set your rifle up like that. If you know you're going to be shooting, 365 days out of the year, then you may choose to have a couple extra jackets in your car, build that position up, see if it's going to work for you in the prone or even in a different position, and take it from there.
Okay. So, all right. Before you finish watching this video, a word from our sponsor. Have you ever thought about making a living in the firearms industry? If you enjoy gun repair, ballistics, and learning about firearms, Sonoran Desert Institute's online courses might just be a good fit for you. To find out more, visit sdi.edu or call 480-999-4767 today. All the ammo used in this video was brought to you by Nosler, maker of the most innovative, most accurate, and most effective bullets and ammunition in the industry.
So now that we have this, that's going to be about good. I like to have my rings about evenly spaced from the adjustment housing to the taper there, and adjustment housing to the power selector. So we'll take our bubble level.
And that's just personal preference. Correct.
Yep, that's personal preference. I just like as wide of a footprint, solid of a footprint as I can give it. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take my rings, throw them up top, get my T15 bit, and get these screws started. All I'm doing right now is taking up majority of the slack.
Okay. So you have some friction in order to.
Exactly. And we can do this in the field, you know. The big thing, you know, is stability of the rifle. Once you set those levels and once you start torquing everything down, you want to make sure that everything stays where you want it to.
Okay.
I use my fingers as a feeler gauge as I'm tightening these down. So as I'm torquing it down, just.
Was there a particular pattern that you use when you're torquing it down?
When I start, I just kind of take up the slack. When I start actually torquing it down, I'll go in a cross bolt pattern, and I'll just do one ring at a time. If I can get the first ring down, then the scope's not going to turn once I do the second ring.
Gotcha.
I do like equal and even spacing when possible on the outside, between the top and bottom of the ring. Okay, so we're gonna do. Tap this just a little bit. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use my Fix-It Stick torque limiter with my T15 bit. I'm going to reference my front bubble level, reference my back bubble level, make sure they're still on that left line, and then I'm gonna slowly start tightening these down. And as I slowly start tightening these down, it's gonna pull the scope one direction or the other. So you wanna be looking at it while you're doing it. If you catch it soon enough, you can kind of just rock it back the other direction. But if you get to the point where you're fully torqued down, you may end up having to loosen and start from scratch. So
it's a good idea to just progressively tighten those.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 65-inch bit right now, and I'm going to take my mount and I'm going to push it forward in the respective Picatinny slot. That way, as the rifle recoils backwards, there's nowhere for that mount to go. So I'm going to push forward on the scope, push forward on the mount, and go ahead and slightly tighten those down. It's going to torque these down to 65 inch-pounds. Okay, now the mount is mounted to the rifle. Now we're just going to tighten the scope down, make sure it's level, and we'll be good to go. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and start tightening this down one side at a time, taking up the slack. When we get to the final torque, we want to make sure that we're doing it in a cross bolt pattern, kind of like we talked about. That just prevents everything from rotating. So I apply a little bit more and then come back one last time for a final torque. So now we're going to double check our level. Still on the line, perfect. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing with my front ring, mount my Delta Point Pro, and then from there we'll get down, bore sight, and start zeroing.
Sounds good to me.
Very good.
Politicians and tech giants don't want gun content to be recommended to you, and we're all fighting this culture war together. Now, you can help do your part by liking, commenting, subscribing to the channel, but most importantly, sharing this video with at least one person. Together, we can stop the suppression of our 2A rights. And don't forget to click the link in the description section of this video for the products that I mentioned in this video.